Have you ever paused and truly wondered why the wrong people often end up in the right places? Why those who seem least qualified sometimes rise to positions of staggering influence while more capable, thoughtful individuals stay hidden in the shadows? It's not just bad luck. It's not just corruption. It's a deep pattern written into the very structure of human nature, and if you don't understand it, you'll forever be at its mercy. Today, we dive into the brutal truths exposed by Niccolo Machiavelli, a mind centuries ahead of his time, whose raw insights into power remain terrifyingly relevant. But this isn't just a history lesson. This is mind motivation at its finest, a wake-up call to sharpen your understanding of how influence is truly built and how you can rise without losing your integrity. Because the game of power isn't won by accident, it's won by those who know the rules. Most people are too afraid to admit exist. Stay with me, because in the parts that follow, we're not just going to expose the tactics used by incompetent leaders. We're going to arm you with the strategies to see through the illusion, protect your ambition, and lead with real impact. Drop a comment below if you've ever witnessed this dynamic at work, and make sure to stay tuned for the next parts, because today's mind motivation might just change the way you see leadership forever. The brutal truth about power and appearance. Throughout history, power has rarely been awarded to the most qualified. It has almost always been seized by those who understood the brutal game of appearances. Niccolo Machiavelli, exiled and stripped of political office in Renaissance Florence, saw this pattern with a clarity that most modern thinkers still lack. He realized that in the chaotic, unpredictable world of human affairs, perception often matters more than truth. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are, he wrote. And in that single sentence, he dismantled the naive assumption that merit alone determines leadership. In a perfect world, intelligence, skill, and integrity would naturally rise to the top. But we do not live in a perfect world. We live in a world of cognitive shortcuts, emotional reactions, and psychological vulnerabilities. People don't elect the most qualified. They elevate the most compelling. They don't follow the most competent. They follow the most confident. And often, tragically, they confuse the two. This is not an accident. It's not a glitch in the system. It is the system one built into human nature itself. The smarter and more self-aware a person is, the more they tend to doubt, to question, to hesitate. True intelligence carries with it the curse of nuance. The brilliant mind sees complexity where others crave simplicity. The wise leader acknowledges risk, where the mediocre leader makes reckless promises. But when masses are scared, uncertain, or hungry for quick answers, complexity feels like weakness, and simplicity, even if it's based on lies, feels like strength. Think of how history has treated thinkers versus demagogues. Socrates, the relentless questioner, was condemned to death by the very democracy he sought to improve. Meanwhile, countless rulers rose to power on nothing more than loud certainty and simple slogans. Even today, the patterns repeat. Look around the corporate world, politics, even cultural leadership. Those who shout the loudest often drown out those who think the deepest. This is where mind motivation becomes crucial, because once you see this pattern, you have a choice. You can either fall into bitterness, complaining about how unfair the game is, or you can rise above it by mastering both substance and strategy. You can sharpen your skill while also learning to project certainty. You can embrace the complexity of the world while communicating your vision with clarity and strength. You can refuse to play the fool's game without letting yourself become invisible. Machiavelli didn't teach hopelessness. He taught awareness. He didn't say abandon virtue. He said understand reality, so that virtue can actually survive in a brutal world. And today, the same holds true. Intelligence, integrity, and competence can still win, but only if they are coupled with the strategic understanding that appearances must be managed, confidence must be projected, and communication must meet people where they are not, where we wish they were. This is the battlefield you must step onto if you truly want to lead influence and leave a legacy that matters. In the next part, we will dive deeper into the psychological illusions like the Dunning-Kruger effect that allow overconfidence to masquerade as leadership. Stay sharp, Understanding the battlefield is the first step to winning it. The confidence illusion and the rise of the unqualified. One of the most dangerous illusions in human society is this: we mistake confidence for competence. Over and over again, history proves that the loudest voice in the room is rarely the wisest. Yet time after time, we hand the reins of power to those who declare certainty with boldness, not depth. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago, and today, psychology gives his brutal observations scientific backing. In the 1990s, researchers David Dunning and Justin Kruger coined the term Dunning-Kruger effect, the cognitive bias where the least competent people grossly overestimate their abilities, while the truly skilled tend to underestimate theirs. In simpler terms, fools rush forward with confidence, while the wise move cautiously with humility. And because humans are wired to favor boldness over complexity, the fools often win, at least at first. The pattern is everywhere. In politics, those who promise grand solutions without acknowledging trade-offs rally millions. In business, charismatic founders with shaky ideas raise billions from investors desperate to believe. In everyday workplaces, the person who speaks the most in meetings is often assumed to be the leader, even if their ideas are hollow. The Stanford and University of Houston study from 2012 confirmed something even more unsettling. Narcissism, not competence, is often the strongest predictor of who emerges as a leader in loosely structured environments. In other words, when systems have no clear measures of success, we follow the person who seems the most sure of themselves, not the person who actually knows what they're doing. But why are we so vulnerable to this trap? Because our brains crave certainty. In a chaotic world, a strong, confident voice gives us emotional relief. It soothes the anxiety that comes from complexity. Even when deep down we suspect the confident person may be wrong, we prefer the comfort of clarity over the discomfort of nuance. And incompetent leaders, consciously or not, exploit this vulnerability. They offer black and white answers to gray problems. They present false dichotomies where reality demands layered understanding. They act swiftly, decisively, and dangerously without the burden of deep thought slowing them down. Meanwhile, the competent leader, weighing consequences and contemplating complexity, appears hesitant, uncertain, weak. This is the psychological trap Machiavelli hinted at, and modern neuroscience confirms under pressure we don't always follow the best mind. We follow the steadiest hand, even if it's steering us toward disaster. Here's your mind motivation today. If you are building true competence, you must also learn to command attention. You must project strength without abandoning thoughtfulness. You must communicate clarity without sacrificing truth. Because if you don't, someone far less qualified but far more confident will step into the space you leave empty. In the next part, we'll uncover how incompetent leaders don't just rise, they entrench themselves, surrounding their power with layers of loyalty and mediocrity to make themselves almost untouchable. Stay ready. If you want to win in this world, you must learn to see the full battlefield. How incompetence protects itself. Once incompetence seizes power, it doesn't simply sit back. It fortifies itself. It constructs walls so high, so dense, that true merit struggles to even get close. Machiavelli warned of this centuries ago. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. And if you look closely today in governments, corporations, and even small organizations, you will see the same pattern repeating itself with eerie precision. Weak leaders deliberately surround themselves with weaker subordinates. Not because they don't recognize talent, but because they fear it. They fear being outshined. They fear being questioned. They fear being replaced. So they build an empire of mediocrity, loyal but limited followers who owe everything to the leader's favor, not to their own abilities. This creates a devastating chain reaction. When loyalty, not competence, becomes the ticket to advancement, entire systems rot from within. Smart, capable individuals either leave or are forced into silence. Critical thinking dies. Innovation suffocates. And over time, incompetence becomes institutionalized, protected not by excellence but by fear. flattery, and fragile egos. You've seen it yourself. Organizations where raising concerns is labeled as disloyalty. Teams where asking tough questions is punished, not praised. Environments where the appearance of unity is valued more than the pursuit of truth. That is the hallmark of a power structure built not on strength, but on insecurity. And it doesn't end there. Incompetent leaders often escalate their control by creating chaos, confusion, crises, scandals. These are not always accidents, they are weapons. When people are overwhelmed, when every day feels like a new fire to put out, there's no time or energy left to question leadership. Chaos blinds the masses while the throne grows stronger. This is your mind motivation today. Never mistake noise for strength. Never assume that those who stand tallest in chaos are the strongest. Often, they are simply the ones most willing to destroy clarity to protect their own fragile power. In the next part, we will dive into why even highly intelligent people, even you, can sometimes fall for these illusions, and what mental armor you must build to stay sharp and unmanipulated. Stay sharp. Stay dangerous. Why even smart people follow the wrong leaders. It's easy to believe that intelligence alone protects you from manipulation, but history and neuroscience prove otherwise. Even the most brilliant minds can be seduced by incompetent leaders because the traps are psychological, not logical. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago, and today's science only confirms it. The first trap is our craving for certainty. In a world filled with complexity, ambiguity, and fear, people gravitate toward those who offer simple answers, not because they are right, but because they are clear. Leaders who project absolute certainty, even without evidence, are emotionally magnetic. They calm anxiety. They offer the illusion of safety. And the smarter you are, the more elaborate your justifications for following them can become. The second trap is cognitive overload. When information becomes overwhelming, constant scandals, non-stop, news cycles, endless crises, the brain gets tired, and a tired brain defaults to mental shortcuts. It stops analyzing. It starts trusting appearances. In those moments, charisma beats competence, sound bites beat substance. Third, there's identity fusion. When a leader successfully links their message to your sense of belonging, your tribe, your values, your hopes, challenging that leader feels like betraying yourself. This emotional bond blinds judgment even in people who should know better. You have seen it before. Smart, capable individuals defending leaders whose actions clearly betray competence and ethics, not because they don't know better, but because knowing better would mean admitting they were wrong, and that kind of humility is rare. This is your mind. Motivation today. Intelligence without emotional discipline is a liability. If you want to be truly resilient in a manipulative world, you must cultivate not just knowledge, but self-awareness. You must recognize when your own fears, needs, and biases are being weaponized against you. Because manipulation doesn't target your mind, it targets your emotions. In the final part, we will uncover how environments can be designed to either reward true competence or amplify incompetence, and what you can personally do to thrive in a world full of noise and deception. Stay sharp. The future belongs to those who refuse to be fooled, building systems that reward true competence. If incompetence can rise so easily, is there any hope for change? The answer is yes, but only if we design better systems, starting with how we structure power, measure success, and select leadership. First, environments with clear, immediate feedback tend to reward competence. In fields like surgery, aviation, or elite sports, failure is obvious and costly. There's no hiding behind charisma when results are concrete. Systems that create direct accountability where performance is visible and consequences are real filter out incompetence naturally. Second, we must prioritize transparency over spectacle. When decisions, results, and failures are exposed to public scrutiny, surface charm cannot replace substance for long. Truth must be easier to find than illusion. Third, we must build cultures that celebrate cognitive diversity. Real innovation doesn't come from echo chambers of loyal yes men. It comes from teams unafraid to challenge each other to think differently and to speak truth even when it's uncomfortable. Competence thrives in environments where honest dissent is protected, not punished. Finally, at the personal level, your mind motivation must be relentless. You must train yourself to seek complexity over easy answers, to reward substance over show, to demand evidence over noise. Don't just hope for better leaders, become one. Lead your own life with the integrity, courage, and awareness that the world so desperately needs, because real power, the kind that builds, heals, and transforms, is not about appearances. It's about mastery. And mastery begins with the mind. See through the illusion. Build the future. The uncomfortable truth is that incompetence often rises